It's Holy Week this week, and I love this week because this week is all about Jesus and all that Jesus has done. From Palm Sunday in his triumphal entry into Jerusalem to Good Friday in his death on the cross, and then Easter Sunday in his resurrection, there is a lot to think about. There's a lot to celebrate in this week. And Paul feels the same way. In 1 Corinthians chapter 2, in verse 2, it says this: "For I decided to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified." And I love that verse, just to unpack that verse here a little bit here, where Paul says, "For I decided." That word decided gives us the idea of being determined or dedicated. That Paul has this singular focus that says, I have determined, that I have dedicated to know nothing except Jesus Christ. And even that word know, where he says, "For I decided to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ." That word know means to see or to understand or to appreciate. That Paul is saying, I want to see Christ more than anything. I want to appreciate Christ more than anything. I want to understand Christ more than anything. And then where he says, "For I decided to know nothing among you." That for Paul, there's nothing more important than knowing Christ. There is no higher priority in Paul's life than knowing Christ Jesus. But not just knowing Christ Jesus, but knowing him crucified. And that's what this Holy Week is all about, is to dwell deeply on all the effects of the crucifixion of Christ on our behalf. Taking our sin, taking our shame, taking our guilt, taking our punishment, taking on the wrath of God upon himself on our behalf. All of that work of Christ, what he did on the cross, Paul said, I want to know this more than anything else. And so, church, can I encourage you this week? Maybe this is a week that we take a little bit of pause from social media, that we take a little bit of pause from everything that's going on in the world around us right now, and let's just focus in on Christ. You could read the gospel accounts and just read the Holy Week and everything that went on in the life of Christ in the Gospels. Or just read about Paul. Paul talks about the cross all the time. Maybe you just spend some time in the epistles this week. I'd encourage you, worship Christ. Look for songs that talk about the cross, that talk about the sacrifice of Christ, and talk about the wonderful work of Christ on our behalf. And I would encourage you, so let's be like Paul this week, and let's decide, let's determine to know nothing but Jesus Christ and him crucified.